Welcome to my experimental painting video. It's experimental because I'm outside. I'm going to be painting a horse, but I was tired of being inside, and I'm sure you are too. So I'm painting outside today. It's experimental because the wind probably, well, it has been already gusting a bit. If I fall out of my chair, it's because a wasp has maybe entered my space. And so anyway, but I want to show you something. I got all set up, and then I went inside to get something else, and the wind indeed did come up. So hold on. So this mess on my palette is from the wind coming up on my canvas, the wind coming up and knocking down my canvas into my palette. And so I took a knife and pulled the colors off and put them back where they belong. Then I took a paper towel and just rubbed them all in. I'm not going to waste the canvas. This canvas I did mark off into 11 by 14, a standard framing size. This is the picture. I'm going to be doing something similar to this. This was a painting I did in the past, and so, but I think I better get started because we may have to pause this and go inside this way. But this is like plein air painting, and like I said, I have little to no control of anything. So what I'm going to do is sketch this out, and horses, I like to start with the ears. And you can see I tend to work pretty quickly because okay, we're going to try this again. We've regrouped indoors, and what I had started to do is to sketch in the horse, and that's what I'm going to continue to do. Usually an ear is about where the eye would be. So this is a kind of a worn out flat brush. It's actually called a Bright. A brand I like is the silver brush. The Grand Prix is what they're called. And so I'm just using it like pencil. A little too much paint there. No biggie. And then usually about down another ear's length. It's about where the There's another part of the horse's anatomy. So I'm just looking at the shapes right now in angles. I don't like to work with curves as much. Like I said, you might hear stuff in the background here, and that's just focus on what we're doing here. I'm working a little bit fast. I guess I still think I'm outside. I know this part down here might be disconcerting to some. I could have just started with a clean canvas, but you know, life is out of control, and for a lot of us, we got to make the most of it, right? And I mentioned before that I'm short on canvases, and so we'll paint over most of this anyway. So what the heck? Right. I don't like something I put in there, I kind of just modify it. Maybe it's for my own benefit that I wipe it out. I don't worry about it being exact at this point. It's not done till it's done, and I try not to get hung up on it. Okay. Lines don't create the form of anything. They give us a shape, but it's the values that do all the work. And I'm going to change to a little different brush here. This is a Filbert number 2. For those of you that are taking notes, that I'm going to start with the darker values in the art world. We hear and we know that the values do all the work. The color gets all the glory, gets all the credit. But once the values, which these are values from dark to light, help us to create the form. This may look weird, it may not be quite right. One thing about oil paint that I love is that it's, you can, oh my goodness, you can change things on a whim. It's very forgiving. Oil paint is so forgiving. So this is the first phase for me. The first stage is to get the sketch in, which I did. And then now we're just working on the values. And what I'm putting in is the dark values first. I know it's going to seem weird. It's like, how is this ever going to look like a horse, right? But you will see. looking at the shapes of things. Shapes of the shadows. And I think his nose is way short, so I'm going to drop this all down. I know. Right. But you can't be afraid of your paint. You can't be afraid of making mistakes. Not really mistakes. Series of minor adjustments. That's all it is. Another filbert brush. I can get more on this one, because I want to bring in some of these darker values. This is called the dry scrumble. I'm just loading up the brush and I'm scrumbling all this in here. If you haven't worked in a while, it's like your shoulder starts to get kind of tired. At least mine does. I'm going to resketch that line a little bit there. All the way through, we're redrawing. We're just resketching. And I do want to drop this this area down a bit. Oil paints are nice that way. I mean, it's a living medium, like I keep saying, and or I've said before anyway. And you can manipulate it, blend it, change it. There we go. This guy's got his nostrils flared. He's really smelling. So, as you see, I'm working quickly through here. I like to get the values in, the sketch in, the values in, like within the first 20 minutes of my painting session. And that is because you don't want to noodle it too much. You don't want to overwork it too much at this point. You don't want to get too hung up in it. Simply because there's a lot of work that goes on after this point, and so you want to have a fairly decent sketch. I'm not saying that, because it's important that certain elements are right. And you're going to say, well, maybe this isn't right. I'm not real worried about it right now. Looking for the shapes of the shadows that create the bone structure. And this is one of thousands of brush strokes that's going into this painting. There'll be many, many, many more that will follow. This is, to me, the fun part. It's all fun, but this is, to me, the easy part. This is where we have a lot of freedom through here. And So I will decide at this point if I'm putting feathers on this guy, if I like to do that, bring in feathers, and I'm running out of paint. I'm gonna put more paint out. Oh, really? You weren't recording? Yep. All right. So I'm just going to darken up some of the darkest values so that I have some nice clean areas. You will see that the tiniest adjustment can change things. I'm going to darken the inside of the ears a bit. As you can tell, I'm working quickly. I'm not into perfection right now. I'm into just kind of getting this guy up here. Okay. I see he's real narrow on this line here. I'm going to bring this up. There we go. And eventually this will be much lighter paint. Here's my line right here though. Okay, so will I put feathers on him? I don't have a lot of room on this canvas, but I think I will. I think I'm going to go ahead and bring in some of my feathers. And that may be just enough with him. Okay. Let's see, I'm still looking at values. Values from light to dark. It's a little bit hard to paint and to talk and to think, but I mean, I've done it in my live demos with my students for a long time. I just have no idea how this is going to come across in our video. So at this point, I'm going to do some fixing of this canvas down here, just because I want to kind of get rid of all these other colors. I'm taking some cobalt blue, cerulean blue, and I am going to go ahead and paint over all this stuff. It'll help me get the tone and the mood of this painting. And because it was a bit of a train wreck outside with the wind, and so that's okay. I don't really have an issue with doing this. You can see I'm just kind of getting lots of paint on this brush, and I just want to cover that up. I know some of my students, that would really bug. So I'll take care of it right now for you. And we'll also kind of set the mood and the tone of the piece. The mood, right? Now we know it's what the lighting might be like. Kind of sets the temperature too. These are warm blues. They're not cool blues, they're warm blues. So this helps to set the temperature. And once again, I am not getting all hung up on my brush strokes. I just want to get some color in here. And I'm okay with some of those oranges changing, and yellows and golds changing the color underneath here. That's fine with me. I think variety is nice. I'm going to go ahead and paint the background while we're working on this, and while I'm painting the background, I'm also correcting some of my painting errors from the first go around. Oil paints are great for this. You can just keep, I mean, there's a point. You can make mud, okay? We don't really like to have mud. We don't want to have mud at all. So if you find yourself making mud, see, thinning that out right there makes his whole face look longer, which it was looking a little short. And I know this is one of those things, it's like, well, how on the earth is this going to turn out? Well, it will. And if it doesn't, it was a great learning experience all the same. I'm painting a little bit over where my line is on this. And I'm painting this quickly, which I do tend to paint rather quickly myself because, well, for one thing, I'm tying up the household here in the middle of my living room, and so this is what I'm going to call this session will go for probably till I get the background in for now. And as I do, I tend to bring reflective color into my subject. You'll notice on Cowboy Remedy, if you watched him at all, that video, Cowboy Remedy had, I started out with doing the same thing, where wherever I see reflected lights early on, I start to put them in. I'm wiping out my brush. It keeps it from getting, my paint's getting muddy. And like I say, these are just the beginning. I mean, these are just kind of what I call blocking in. This is blocking in the colors, the background. This one, though, I'm doing a lot with this background early on, and it may work just to leave it. It's putting some motion into the sky, and setting the temperature, the weather, all kinds of stuff. And we can tell that the wind is blowing because his feathers are definitely lifted and blowing. And I may do something with his mane and his forelock that also gives us that same feeling. Nothing is set in stone. I can manipulate this all the way through. See that light coming in there is offering some nice highlighting of his face. There's no right or wrong, okay? There's just, you know, playing. Getting into it. I like to block in the values. I like to get the sketch in, which was the first thing. Then the values, which is the lights and darks, okay? And if I have something that has a lot of sky to it, like this one, I'm going to go ahead and do that sky early on, because it does set the mood. And now I can kind of come in, and I want to change something or add something at this point, all the way through. You know, I just kind of resketch all the way through. I don't think about it too much. It's just like if something looks off, I'm going to grab a color. It doesn't matter what color, as you can kind of tell. I'm reevaluating my darks. This brush is now not putting the values down, it's picking more paint up than it's lifting. So I'm going to move back to something with a little more bristle to it. So reevaluating some of these darks. And then there's some halftones right in here. I did lips. Horse lips, cow lips, they are very interesting indeed. I'm going to drop his lip down further. At this point, I'm also going to put in some of the dark in these feathers. Once you get into painting and learn to understand that it's okay to learn through your mistakes, you gain a great deal of wisdom, and you gain a deal of confidence. Just because you know that maybe these first few brush strokes are not quite right, you do know that you learn that you can change them and fix them, and not to worry too much. So this session is going to stop here pretty soon, and we'll call this session 1 of this guy, who we will need to name. He's a pale horse. He's like a Palomino paint. So we'll just call him session 1 of Palomino paint. And we'll take a break here. I know he looks really, really, really funny at this point. That's quite all right. We're not going to panic. We're not going to do anything. Got the sketch, got the values. We'll be drawing all the way through. So, hit this. Signing off with phase 1.